Hello everyone, hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, we're going to follow James and Diep as a simple Christmas outing turns into something much more emotional. What starts as Diep's very first nail salon experience becomes a tender moment of comfort, laughter, and quiet romance, while a hidden sense of danger lingers just outside the frame. If you enjoy stories with warmth, tension, and meaningful little details, you're in the right place. And if you find this video interesting, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next episodes. James's smile stayed in place, but his eyes didn't. Outside the nail salon window, Christmas lights blinked like tiny, harmless stars. Yet James was staring past them, past the decorations, to the street corner where a dark motorbike had been parked too long. A man stood beside it, not shopping, not calling anyone, not moving, just watching. Diep, glowing with a soft kind of joy she didn't trust yet, lifted her hands to the glass. "It's actually pretty," she whispered, as if saying it louder might break the moment. James stepped half a foot to the side quietly, instinctively placing himself between her and the street. "Yeah," he said lightly, "it suits you." Diep didn't notice the shift in him. She was still staring at her nails like they belonged to someone else. And that was the problem, because James had promised himself something on Christmas. If Diep was going to feel safe for even one day, he would make it real. 3 hours earlier, at the bamboo house, the morning arrived cold and pale. The fairy lights looked brighter against the chill, like they were working overtime. Diep moved around in wool socks, folding blankets, wiping the small wooden table, pretending loneliness was just another chore. Then a scooter engine purred outside. A black automatic scooter rolled into the yard, smooth and confident. James stepped off like he was arriving for a mission, except his grin was too cheerful to be trusted. Diep appeared at the doorway with her arms crossed. "Why do you look like that?" James lifted a small paper bag like evidence. "Because it's Christmas." "That's not an explanation. It's a warning." He held the seriousness for half a second, then cracked. "Go get ready. We're going out." Diep blinked. "Out where?" He leaned in, lowering his voice dramatically. "To do nails." "James." "Diep." "I live in a bamboo house," she said slowly. "I carry baskets. I touch pomelo branches. Nails will last 10 minutes. "Then we'll enjoy 10 minutes," he replied, too calm. "That's still a win." Before she could argue again, he handed her the bag. Inside, a warm scarf and a tiny bottle of hand cream. Her face softened just a little before suspicion returned. "You bought this?" James shrugged. "I'm capable of kindness." "You're capable of trouble." He pressed a hand to his chest. "Both can be true." By the scooter, he held up 2 matching helmets like a magician presenting the final trick. He put on a black helmet and offered her a white one. Diep squinted. "Why does mine have to be white?" "Because it suits you," he said quickly. "And because if we're doing Christmas nails, we're committing fully." When he tried to fasten the strap under her chin, his fingers moved like he was defusing a bomb. Diep laughed. "Why are you shaking?" "I'm not shaking," he muttered. "This strap is aggressive." "You've done scarier things than a helmet strap." James paused, then sighed. "Yes, but those things didn't involve you staring at me like I'm failing a basic human task. You are, he groaned, finally clicking it into place. Done. Perfect. Professional. They rode into town under blinking decorations and paper Santas taped to shop windows. Diep held on gently, the white helmet bright against the gray morning. James drove slower than usual, careful, deliberate, like her safety mattered more than his pride. "You're driving like an old man," Diep teased. "I'm driving like a man who doesn't want his passengers complaining for the next 10 years. "So you admit you're scared of me." "I respect you," he corrected. "Fear is an ingredient of respect." The salon was small and warm, lit softly, with a tiny Christmas tree near the counter. Diep hesitated at the entrance, suddenly aware of her plain clothes and rough hands. James leaned close. "We can leave." Diep glanced up. "You'd let me leave?" "Yes," he said gently, "but I'd be disappointed for exactly 12 seconds." She huffed a laugh and stepped inside. "Fine, 12 seconds is unbearable." When Diep's fingers hovered over the colors, she paused at a milky pink quiet, almost translucent. James leaned in. "That one. You're sure?" "I'm not sure about many things," he said, "but I'm sure that color won't regret you." "That sentence makes no sense." "It's Christmas," James replied. "Grammar takes a holiday." As the first coat went on, the pink shimmered under the salon light, gentle, clean, like a softer version of her life. Diep stared like she didn't recognize her own hands. Then the technician turned to James with a cheerful smile. "Your turn, couple service." Diep's eyes widened with mischief. "Oh no, James, you booked a couple services?" James straightened, offended and confused at the same time. "I booked an appointment, that's it." The technician was already setting out the tools. James stared at the warm water bowl like it was a trap. Diep leaned closer, whispering sweetly, "Agent James, this is your Christmas mission." James exhaled through his nose. "This mission is humiliating." Diep's grin deepened. "I'm so proud of you." And later, standing by the window with Diep's new nails catching the light, James felt that quiet wind settle in his chest. Until he saw the man outside, until he saw the motorbike that had been waiting too long. And while Diep smiled at her hands like the world had finally been kind, James shifted one step closer, becoming a wall without asking for credit, already deciding what would happen next. James didn't stare long enough to be obvious. He just let his gaze skim the street once, then twice, like he was checking the weather. The man by the motorbike shifted his weight, glanced at his phone, and looked back up. Diep turned, following James's eyes. "What is it?" "Nothing," James said too quickly, then softened it. "Just keep your hands inside. Your nails are still fresh." Diep lifted her palms, admiring the soft, milky pink again, and laughed under her breath. "You brought me here for nails, and now you're acting like my manicure needs a bodyguard." James leaned closer, voice low. "It does. The world is jealous." She nudged his shoulder. "You're weird today." "I'm festive," he corrected, forcing a smile as he guided her away from the window. "Come on, before you get tempted to wave at strangers." Diep's eyebrows lifted. "Wave at strangers?" James blinked. It was a joke. It was a threat. It was a festive threat. They paid, thanked the staff, and stepped outside into the Christmas-lit street. Diep tucked her hands into the scarf bag carefully, like she was carrying something fragile. James walked on her outer side, casual, natural, until he realized his body had already decided where to stand. The man on the motorbike didn't move closer. He didn't need to. The watching was the point. James pulled out his phone and pretended to scroll, angling the screen toward the street to catch the reflection. His heart stayed calm only because he refused to let it do anything else. Diep noticed anyway. "James," she murmured, "are you okay?" He looked at her, and for a second, the teasing slipped. "Yeah, I don't like crowds." Diep studied him like she could see the lie stitched into his smile. "Then why bring me to town? Because you deserve normal," he thought. Instead, he said, "Because you deserve Christmas." They walked toward the scooter. James handed her the white helmet. This time, he fastened the strap under her chin without shaking. Diep smirked. "Look at you, suddenly competent." James exhaled, a breath that almost sounded like relief. "Don't get used to it." As he slid onto the scooter, the man finally moved, turning his bike slightly, like he might follow, like he might not. James watched from the corner of his eye. Diep climbed on behind him and hesitated before wrapping her arms around his waist. It was gentle, careful, like she was asking permission without words. James's voice dropped. "Hold on tighter." Diep's cheeks warmed. "I am holding on." "Not to the scooter," he said, and the corner of his mouth lifted. "To me." Her arms tightened immediately. "Happy now?" James's throat tightened too. "Yeah," he said, softer. "I'm happy." They rode out of town, the lights fading into countryside darkness that felt cleaner, quieter. The cold air stung, but Diep felt safe behind him, warm in the scarf, warm in the absurdity of the day, until James turned down a longer route, one extra loop around a small road lined with empty stalls. Diep leaned forward. "This isn't the way back. It's a shortcut," James lied smoothly. Diep's voice sharpened. "James." He didn't answer right away. He made one more turn, then glanced back over his shoulder just enough to check. No motorbike, no shadow, only the road, empty and cold. He exhaled a breath he'd been holding since the salon window. "Okay," he said, more to himself than to her. "Good." Diep went quiet, then asked softly, "Someone was watching us." James's hands tightened on the handlebars. "Maybe because of your father," she whispered, like saying the word might summon trouble. James didn't deny it. "I'm working on something," he admitted. "I'm close to proof, close enough that people get nervous." Diep's grip loosened fear, not anger. "So today, you did this for me, even though..." "Especially because," James cut in, voice steady, "Christmas is the one day I refuse to let them steal from you." The bamboo house appeared ahead, glowing with small lights against the dark. When they stopped, Diep climbed off slowly, staring at her nails again this time like she was trying to memorize the feeling. James removed his helmet and forced his tone lighter. "So, first nail day review?" Diep lifted her hands. 10 minutes, huh?" She smiled. You were wrong. James tried to smile back, but his eyes stayed watchful, scanning the tree line, the path, the shadows. Diep stepped closer, raising her pink-tipped fingers toward his face. Hey, he blinked. What? She placed her hands gently on his cheeks, careful not to smudge, careful like she was handling something breakable. Thank you, she whispered, for giving me a day that didn't feel like running. James swallowed hard. You shouldn't thank me for basic things. Then stop doing extraordinary things, she replied, eyes shining. James didn't answer, because behind Diep's shoulder, far past the bamboo fence, a phone screen lit up in the dark just for a second, like an eye blinking open. And James understood with a cold certainty that Christmas wasn't over. It was only getting started.
Sáng Giáng sinh, James gây bất ngờ cho Diệp bằng một kế hoạch ngẫu hứng. Lần đầu tiên cô được làm móng tay, anh mang theo một cặp mũ bảo hiểm giống hệt nhau, lái xe cẩn thận và giữ cho không khí vui vẻ trong khi Diệp lưỡng lự, rồi dần dần thư giãn, tận hưởng sự ấm áp của ngày hôm đó. Bên trong tiệm làm bóng ấm cúng, Diệp chọn một màu sơn hồng nhẹ nhàng, ngạc nhiên trước vẻ mềm mại của đôi tay mình dưới ánh đèn. Nhưng James nhận thấy một người đàn ông khả nghi đang theo dõi từ bên ngoài và niềm vui trở nên mong manh. Sau khi rời đi, James đi đường vòng để tránh bị theo dõi, thừa nhận anh đang sắp tìm ra bằng chứng chống lại cha mình. Trở lại căn nhà tre, Diệp cảm ơn anh vì cho cô một ngày không phải chạy trốn. Nhưng màn hình điện thoại sáng lên trong bóng tối ám chỉ rằng nguy hiểm vẫn còn đang rình rập.